A billionaire and a homeless man crossing paths on a cold street. One simple act of kindness, but what if that small gesture cost you more than you ever expected? What happens when your life changes in an instant, but the reward isn't what you thought it would be? Here's the story of how one homeless man's life was forever altered by a single encounter. Hello everyone, welcome to the Enigma Files. Let's get started. Jake had always lived a hard life. His mornings started early, with him packing up his makeshift bed on the cold sidewalk, brushing off the debris of the night before. He had no family to speak of, no friends to rely on, and no job to go to. Jake's days were filled with wandering from one corner of the city to the next, searching for food, a kind smile, or the hope of finding a way out of the streets. He had given up on the idea of things getting better long ago. But on one particularly cold evening, something unexpected happened that would change his life forever. It was around p.m. when Jake noticed a man in a sharp suit stumbling down the street, obviously disoriented. He was a well-dressed man, walking with the kind of self-assurance that most people on the streets could only dream of, yet tonight, something was wrong. Jake's instincts kicked in as the man tripped over a broken curb and collapsed onto the pavement, clutching his chest in pain. Without thinking, Jake rushed to his side, trying to assess the situation. The man's breathing was shallow, and his face was flushed with the unmistakable signs of a heart attack. Jake's heart raced, but there was no hesitation in his movements. He fumbled for his phone from his ragged coat pocket and dialed 911, doing his best to remain calm as he spoke to the operator, describing the man's condition. The emergency responders arrived within minutes, but Jake had already done what he could. He had stayed with the man, talking to him, keeping him conscious until the ambulance arrived. Once they had taken him away, Jake, exhausted and with little more than a faint hope of the man surviving, walked back to his usual corner, his heart heavy with the weight of another night in the cold. 3 days later, Jake was sitting in his usual spot, staring blankly at the pavement when he saw a sleek black car pull up to the curb. A well-dressed man stepped out, looking around. He was the same man Jake had helped, but now he was dressed in a pristine suit and had the air of someone who had everything under control. The man walked straight toward Jake with a smile on his face. "You saved my life," he said, his voice filled with sincere gratitude. "I'm Marcus Thompson, CEO of Thompson Enterprises." Jake looked up in confusion. He had never heard of Thompson Enterprises, but he figured this man was rich, probably the type who couldn't even remember the people he passed on the street. But Marcus didn't seem like that at all. He knelt beside Jake, looking directly into his eyes. "I owe you everything. You saved me that night," Marcus continued. "I wouldn't be here without you, and I want to make sure you don't go unnoticed. I'm offering you a place to stay, a job, and all the help you need to get back on your feet. It's the least I can do." Jake blinked, his mind struggling to comprehend what was happening. A job? A place to stay? For a moment, he thought the man was joking. But as the conversation continued, Marcus made it clear that he wasn't. The billionaire had seen Jake's potential, he explained, and his kindness toward a stranger had touched him deeply. Marcus had given Jake an address to a luxury apartment building and promised that someone would meet him there the next day. Jake felt a rush of hope flooding through him. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. For the first time in years, he saw a chance to change his life. He was given a new set of clothes, a place to shower, and a phone. He even got a job as a personal assistant at Marcus's company, doing office work that he never thought he could do. The first few days were overwhelming, but Jake was determined to make the most of it. He couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to take a monumental turn. But things weren't as perfect as they seemed. Slowly, Jake began to notice things that didn't sit right. Marcus was kind to him, yes, but there were moments when Jake could see the cold, calculating side of the billionaire. He felt like he was being watched all the time. There were subtle hints that Marcus had his own reasons for helping Jake, and they didn't always seem as selfless as they had first appeared. Jake couldn't shake the feeling that there was something Marcus wasn't telling him. On the third day of working at the company, Jake overheard a conversation between Marcus and his assistant. They were discussing a real estate project, a luxury development that had plans to build on the land Jake had once slept on. The project would displace dozens of families, including Jake's old friends from the street. Suddenly, everything clicked. Jake realized that Marcus hadn't just helped him out of the kindness of his heart. There was a bigger agenda behind the gesture. The land on which Jake had lived was prime real estate, and Marcus was using Jake to gain access to it. It was a cold and calculated move, and the kindness Marcus had shown was merely a means to an end. Jake was devastated. His hope was dashed, and he couldn't escape the feeling of being used. He confronted Marcus about what he had overheard, but Marcus simply smiled, admitting that he had indeed been using Jake to further his own interests. Yet, he assured Jake that he had done the right thing by helping him, and that Jake still had a bright future ahead of him. The truth was, Jake had been manipulated, and the life he had dreamed of was not as perfect as it seemed. He quit his job, left the apartment, and disappeared from the scene, but the damage had already been done. He had been given a chance, only to see it crumble when he realized the ulterior motives behind Marcus's kindness. In the end, Jake's life didn't change in the way he had hoped. The billionaire had gotten what he wanted, and Jake was left to once again face the harsh realities of life on the streets, knowing that not all kindness comes without a hidden price.